BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Baby cold do 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 do, baby cold do 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 do, baby cold do 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 do, baby cold. Grandma cold do 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 do, grandma cold do 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 do, grandma cold do 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 do, grandma cold. Carlton cold do 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 do, Carlton cold do 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 do, Carlton cold do 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 do, Carlton cold.
The following podcast contains some strong language and adult themes, the sort of thing that we call fun stuff. If you don't like bad words, this pod probably isn't for you. Back stronger. What the hell was that?
Oh God, it's like bargain hunt.
Has Wayne Rooney got big shins?
But I genuinely have had a problem with Alsatians ever since.
What is Carl?
I've always wondered that.
Oh my God, I can't believe it.
When you say dirty undies everywhere,
Banging music.
some kind of sex burglar.
It was so loud.
I've enjoyed that one massively.
That's about it. Welcome to That Peter Crouch podcast with Tom Fordyce,
All right, Crouchy.
Chris Stark,
Hello, mate.
and me, Peter Crouch. How are we doing, lads? All good?
Very good, very good.
It's quite an early one, Chris, today, isn't it?
Yeah, let's be honest. We like to set the scene with these things. We've all decided to meet up very early today around the Croucho Club.
It's a bit early for us, isn't it, this?
You've just reminded me, though, that when we were last here, we were talking about houses, and obviously because we were in your house, footballers' houses. It reminded me that I forgot to tell you boys about a time I went to someone's house. This is a weird story, bear with me, but the guy's house was Engelbert Humperdinck.
Please release me.
Was he from Leicester?
Go.
He's from Leicester, and he was doing a Eurovision song, so we had him on Radio 1.
He kept the Beatles off number one, famously.
Did he?
Yeah. Penny Lane, Strawberry Fields, amazing double A side, kept off number one by Humperdinck.
He had a song which you guys
Great
might
knowledge.
not have realised, because he obviously famously did Please Release Me, which is like an old crooner sort of song. But he also showed me a song he did called Lesbian Seagull.
You've been talking about this.
Right?
I've died to hear about it.
I messaged the boys after that podcast and was like, shit, I forgot to talk to you about Lesbian Seagull. Remind me another day and I'll introduce you to it. So I want to do that just very quickly right now.
You talk, I'll find it on WooTube.
Okay, so I think it was for a TV show that he did it. It was Beavis and Butthead. But so
Right.
Engelbert
What about
Humperdinck, please release me. Like,
Chris, I found it. You keep
here we
talking,
go.
I'll play Lesbian Seagull.
Here is Engelbert Humperdinck, Lesbian Seagull.
You never know which way this podcast is going to turn, do you? Humperdinck, Lesbian Seagull, 8 in the morning.
Here we go.
I've got so many questions. Was that a seagull noise? Caw, caw.
Lesbian Seagull. With me.
Well, it's not a bad song, but why Lesbian Seagull?
Lesbian Seagull, I don't actually know the backstory as to why he created a song called Lesbian Seagull, but I'd love to hear that chanted at a football match at you.
That's getting cut. 100%. Honestly, I never know when things are getting cut, but that is getting cut. I don't want anything to do with that.
I think you sort of hold yourself a little bit like a seagull sometimes.
When he goes up for a header, the arms come out like the wings of a seabird.
Yeah, and just sort of, quite thin legs and quaw, quaw, quaw.
That's a bizarre song, isn't it?
Well, I'm pretty certain it was for a TV show anyway. I think it was Beavis and Butthead. But there you go, Lesbian Seagull.
Well, funny you should talk about TV, Chris, he says, with the clanking of gears, because today we're talking about TV, boys, aren't we? We're going to talk about watching football on television, the best pundits. We'll talk about some of the great footballer TV cameos. Crouchy, TV for you?
Sopranos is probably my all-time favourite, I reckon.
The players pass recommendations around for box sets?
Yeah, I only work on recommendations. I don't think you can go in rogue, can you? Because you waste so much time. I think you need two credible sources before you go into a box set.
You've got an amazing TV setup here. It's huge, biggest I've seen. I once got a bigger TV right? The biggest TV I'd ever got. I didn't borrow it. My mate was chucking it out. I said, I'll take it. So I drove quite a distance to pick up the TV with my best mate, brought it home. And the first two things I did with this big TV, it was in my parents' room. So it was just on the end of my bed, massive, was play FIFA and put Babe Station on. And it was like they were in the room with me.
What was the reaction of Mr. and Mrs. Stark to the sounds of Babe Station booming through?
Well, were you still living at home?
I'd kept, I was at home. Yeah, we kept it quiet,
Headphones?
obviously. But it's just a more immersive experience, isn't it?
You feel like you're on the bed with them.
You have to when you get a new big TV. You want to plug in a console first and foremost, don't you?
And number two's Babe Station.
And number two for me anyway, because that was what I was into. Assume you did the same.
Yeah, you know, our TVs have changed. Like the old TV, you had loads of stuff behind it, didn't you? And wires.
Massive.
Where have all the wires gone? Where have they gone?
Great philosophical question. Sounds like it could be a follow-up single for Engelbert Humperdinck. Where have all the wires gone?
What was he like?
He was really sound. He was really into his darts.
Right.
He's quite orange of face, isn't he?
Told me this amazing story that he stayed in this room in Vegas that it was Elvis's old room, but no one was allowed to stay in it. It's still there. And that above along the top of the ceiling, there was bullet holes in the ceiling where Elvis would just lie in bed and just fire off a gun. Anyway, look, let's crack on with some of the messages that you guys have been sending in to us. And we're getting so many of these, and feel free to keep them coming. peter.crouch@bbc.co.uk.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. Here's a nice one from Claire. She's emailed us to say, when I was watching my son's football match at the weekend in the pissing rain, they, particularly him, were playing dreadfully. I was hungover and my fellow spectators' chat was terrible. So I put my headphones in and started listening to the latest episode of the pod. You made me laugh out loud at the very point that my son missed a sitter. Brushing aside the bad mother looks, I used the awkward moment to pass the bod. Keep it coming, boys. Claire.
Superb. I love the idea of mums watching their sons or daughters in the pissing down rain. That's what my mum did. Fair play to her.
Dedication.
Sometimes she'd sit in the car. Yeah, the thought of a podcast getting them through that it was tough times. I mean, my mum had no interest in watching me play football, really. She was doing it for me. So I feel like great pride saying that for the mums out there, they could have something to do and listen to the podcast.
My mum came to one football match that I ever played. No interest in football, which is fair enough. I've got a lot of siblings. She had other things to do. The one game she came to, the last game I played for Pierce Cougars at 16.
Sounds like an amazing letter from like a 45-year-old woman. P.S. Cougars.
I was imagining all the mums on the side there, you know?
Yeah.
Slightly they had massive mum support.
Cougars FC.
Slightly uncomfortable,
P.S.
the
we're
idea of my
Cougar.
mum was a cougar.
Oh, yeah, the team was bonded by the fact all mothers were cougars.
So she's come to this game, and I've just turned to the touchline at one point to see if she's enjoying it. I can't see her. She's walking along a distant hedgerow picking blackberries to make jam.
How boring was that game?
Must have been terrible.
Okay, we got another one from Emily. Emily actually slid into my DMs on Insta to send this message. Put, hi Chris, I went on a first date the other night and he'd never heard of that Peter Crouch podcast. So I made him subscribe on his phone. Not sure we'll have a second date, but hopefully you'll get a new listener. Hashtag pass the pod. Really respect that.
Massive
That's
dedication.
how to decide who you're going to be with.
That's quality.
Should that be, you know, like with dating, you get those acronyms. So you get a GSOH, good sense of humour. Maybe we need to add on a TPCP as one of those little things on a dating thing. You know, if you like,
let's do that. If you are currently single listening to this podcast, whack it on the profile. You know, and then only go for those. If you are swiping right, only go for those that have it on the profile. I think at this point, the profile picture should go secondary to the fact that they're a podcast listener. Don't you love that people are going on dates and talking about the podcast?
Yeah, it's good. It's cropped up a few times, isn't it? On a first date, I'm not sure it's the right vibe, but
well, I don't know, mate. Imagine a situation where two people end up together because of their sort of joint love for the podcast. And then we could have the very first sort of Peter Crouch marriage.
Oh, yes.
You could be the priest. Or
you'd be the celebrant. I think you'd have to be the celebrant, yeah.
okay, I'm up for it.
Here's one from Sam. This is a cracker. Sam says, I wanted to get in touch with you as my son Isaac is a massive fan of yours. To be honest, he is only 3 years old and he doesn't really know much about your prolific aerial presence, gravity-defying overhead kicks, or even your perfect robot dance. But because of the stories I tell him, even though some are made up, he's now become obsessed. And I caught Isaac asking Alexa if he knows Peter Crouch. Right, let me play you this. This is fantastic.
Oh, you've got what? You've got a clip of
Got a clip.
him
So-
asking Alexa?
Yeah, so this is being filmed round the corner from his 3-year-old son in his high chair. Okay, so just get a load of this.
Alexa, I know Peter Crouch.
No way.
Alexa mugs off kids, doesn't it? Like, I've seen quite a bit of this, is like kids shouting desperately at Alexa to understand them. And every time it's patronising or just doesn't bother.
Is this a thing now? Like, do people actually have these things in their house? Like,
What?
seriously?
Yes.
Like, a lot of people, though.
This could be like my Bovril moment.
Do
Crouch.
they?
What are you on about? You know the
Smart
You know what
speakers.
an Alexa is?
Yeah. So you ask it to do stuff.
Yeah.
Or, like, play music.
Play a
or-
song.
But what other things can it do? Just, like, internet. You can just go on the internet.
You can ask it anything.
That's really weird. Sorry.
Sorry, just very quickly, because this seems to be an area of concern for you. What aren't you into? Is it the sort of robotic nature of it?
Yeah, the whole
Ironic.
thing. It's like someone who's not part of your family in your house, and it's strange.
Yeah.
You're asking
what-
it to do things like, why can't you do it yourself?
Yeah. Where do you
a
stand
valid
on
point.
sort of self-service checkouts and things like
I
that?
hate them. Horrible things.
Unexpected item in the bagging
Oh,
area.
I can't do it. I'm just like, why can't I just speak to someone? It's my day off. I don't want to work.
It's,
Like,
it's
do you know what I
very-
mean? If I'm going for
Because your life is so onorous,
No, I
isn't it?
don't want to be checking stuff out.
I just find this ever so slightly ironic with your point. You've got such a sort of beef with modern technology, considering you're very much an advocate of the robot.
That's a valid point.
Do you know what I mean? Something's not adding up
It's a
here.
valid point. I know I don't. I'm not sure I'll ever get to terms with that. But maybe I'll just catch on. You know, when robots are doing stuff for everyone.
Well, you live in, you work in one of the few careers that probably couldn't be just taken over by robots, thinking about it.
Yeah.
Do you think there'll ever be a robot that plays football?
Well, it depends what people want, isn't it? I mean, if you... it's
Rafa
good-
would love a team of robots.
Yeah,
wouldn't he? All over that.
Possibly. You know, they'd get back into shape very quickly, wouldn't they?
Yeah. I mean, it
But-
could be the future that we're talking about here. Would we rather at some point stop watching humans playing football and just go for...
But that's the problem, like with VAR, things like that. It's like the human element of it is what makes football, isn't it? Like the bad decisions, errors. You could never replace that.
So do you think VAR is the start of some sort of robot uprising? Here's a message from Terry. Oh, so he's got a bit of an offer for you, Crouchy. Dear Peter and team, I work in the horse industry. One of our friends, who's a fellow trainer, has a horse named Iniesta. Would you like a photo with him? We could arrange a photo shoot.
That's brilliant. Well, for me, I've proved I'm no liar. And I have a photo of myself with Iniesta, but Chris, you don't, do you?
No, not yet, actually.
Possibly.
It will happen.
Crouchy's done the robot again because it's 100 Premier League goals for Peter Crouch.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
So we're talking about TV. There's a particular show that we all grew up watching, so it feels appropriate, Chris. Can we start this section with just a little communal sing-along? Bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum dum 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 da-dum dum 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 da-da-da-da-dum.
It's not as fun without the dube, is
No,
it?
it's
Not quite the
not.
same, is
Last
it?
time we did it.
But that was banging when we did that at the...
Yeah,
Amazing, wasn't it?
That was top notch. Yeah, match of the day is the institution, isn't it?
So first time as a player that you appear, Crouchy, on Match of the Day. Is that massive for you?
Yeah, it is. It is. It was huge. I mean, there's so much football on TV these days, and I think obviously the way the game's gone, everything's about TV, and that's why the money is what it is. But back in those days, it was only Match of the Day. It was only the big match on the weekend, wasn't it? And it was Match of the Day. That theme tune. I grew up with Des Lynam.
Were you allowed to stay up late on a Saturday to watch it?
Yeah, I mean that was you could
Didn't
stay
have to
up
video
late,
it.
you could watch the matches. It was incredible, and I think obviously later on we had St Greavesy was a great show, wasn't it?
Great show.
Loved St Greavesy. In some ways, it was more special then because you'd only have Match of the Day and you'd only have one match a week, and you know everyone would tune in for that match, and that's why the cup final was so big. The FA Cup final, day was an entire day.
Let's say you're a player on Match of the Day. You don't know what that little 5-minute edit's going to be. Do you get really knocked if, when you watch yourself back on Match of the Day, for whatever reason, the editor has not put in your best moment? Like maybe you've done an amazing drag back or you tracked back and tackled the fullback. It just hasn't made the cut.
Yeah, fuming. I remember there was one game that sticks out in my mind. Not bitter at all, but I mean, it was probably 14 years ago, where I chested it, flicked it over Carvalho at Anfield and volleyed it. The keeper saved it, and I thought, oh God, that was brilliant. I can't wait for Match of the Day. And I was like, I remember saying to my dad, I was like, oh, yeah, it's coming up now. And then it just skipped from like 70 to like 85. I was like, what happened at 80? And yeah, it didn't have like little things like that. It do bug you, definitely. I was thinking that's a great piece of skill, that. And
But no one will ever find out about.
No one will ever see it.
But first and foremost, you watch Match of the Day, right?
Yeah, without that. I
Do you think most players watch it?
selectively? Yeah. Like if I've had a terrible game and I know I'm going to get exposed for missing a chance or something like that, then I'll probably skip it.
Match of the Day is massive. When you're on Match of the Day, let's say you've got man of the match and then you get a feature in a small interview afterwards. Do you get selected?
It's a case of, you'll be selected. It's usually if you've done something in the game.
Good or bad?
Good or bad, yeah, that they want to speak to you. And I always think fair play if you've had a mare and then you know that they want to speak to you about you giving a penalty away in the last minute. I always think fair play to those players because it's a brave thing to do because you've coming out and you're going like, yeah, I've had a mare and speak about it. And it's not a nice thing. But yeah, no one would put themselves up for it, no.
Yeah, fans love seeing it. Like when Troy Deeney steps out and does an interview and says that, like, and do you know what I mean, runs his mouth a bit.
Do you ever wonder, Chris, what you would be like in that situation?
I'd like to think that I would go in.
Would you?
But then the problem is you see the flip side of it, which is you can say too much sometimes.
Well, also you can do what we might call doing a mica, where you go on and you're full of adrenaline, Chris, because you've just played your first team game. You might have scored a goal, and someone sticks a mic under your face. How was that? And you go, yeah, it was fucking brilliant.
Who do you enjoy being commentator for games that you're involved in? Because some commentators are just better, aren't they? And it makes it more exciting, like if you've got your fave on.
I always think, when you've got someone in the, like on the panel, like sometimes we watch games and stuff like that, and you'll have someone that, one of your mates, so say Redknapp was on, or Dion Dublin, or, someone that you know quite well, you think, oh, they're not going to batter you, then they
look out for you.
Yeah, so you'll go, oh yeah, he's a top player, and so I'll go, yes, that's my boy.
Do you ever send a text before? Yes.
No. They have to me a few times, like asking for the team. You can't give it away, even if they're your mates.
But you haven't, after the game, gone, "Oi, be easy on me here."
Yeah,
it's like
a bit of a stinker.
If you've had a nightmare, it's nice to see a couple of your mates in the studio. Without a doubt.
Cut Dublin, I'm off the hook.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
That's class. I love that.
Chris, how would you find it? This is the strange thing for us. We're not critiqued for what we do, which is probably a good thing because most of this podcast is an absolute shambles. Imagine if we finished this podcast and then two people who were amazing at podcasts went on national TV and went, oh, Fordyce was... I mean, let's look at that answer from Fordyce. That was rubbish.
Yeah.
What was Stark talking about lesbian seagulls for? Let's listen back to that bit.
Listen, we're not here for the critics, are we? And
which is probably for
I read a review of this podcast recently, and it was actually all right. But I read it and just thought, this is ridiculous that someone is reviewing it in the way that they are, rather than just seeing it for what it is, which is, as you put it, an absolute shambles. It's like to see someone who's got like some kind of arts degree or something reviewing this podcast alongside
like
all sorts of other stuff as if it's like a piece of work or something. I just thought it was hilarious. I was like, mate, I'm in the pub with Peter Crouch and Tom Fordyce, that's it.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
Crouchy, what sort of pundit do you think you would be or you will be when that moment comes?
It's one of those where you have to give your honest opinion. I think the best pundits, obviously, we as players, when people used to dig us out, or I'd be like, oh, I think he is, like fuming about it, but you have to give your honest opinion. If someone's, you can't dress things up, and I think you have to say it how you see it. And I think they're the best pundits. I think for me, Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville have taken it to a different level. I think on Match of the Day, I think Gary Lineker's just done incredibly. It's easy to forget that he was an England goal scorer. You know, he looks like he's
the record slightly inferior to yours in terms of goals.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to bring that up, but since you have, yeah, of course. But he is a very, very good presenter.
Could you be the next Lineker? That's the question, eh?
No, I don't know. I definitely think that this podcast and various things that I've really enjoyed, but I also enjoyed the coaching side of it as well. And I definitely want to stay in football, or talk about it in some capacity. But there's some great pundits out there, and obviously with Jermaine Genius, I mean, he's younger than me, and he's done very well. And I spoke to him a couple of times on the train, and just what the transition was for him, and he's loving it, absolutely, really enjoying it. And there's some players that really take to that, and some that don't. And I think some players tried their hand. I think I look at, obviously, Steven Gerrard started doing a bit of punditry, and I just think he missed the sort of buzz of the day-to-day stuff. So I don't think you know what you will be like until you're in that position. And I think that buzz and that adrenaline of being a manager or a coach, it's hard. The day-to-day sort of training ground environment is hard to replicate. So when I lose that, that'll be tough.
If you were a pundit, Crouchy, because there's very much a pundit uniform, isn't there? Yeah. The pale blue shirts. It's not overly formal, but neither is it a funky shirt. Tucked into maybe a smart pair of jeans, or a pair of slacks. Would you go for that, Crouchy? Would you try and rock it up?
I think so. I think that's the vibe. It used to be such shirt and tie, didn't it? Every gig, but now it's become a bit more relaxed, isn't it? A bit more of a relaxed vibe.
It's like dress down Friday in an office, isn't it, Chris?
A little bit. No tie. What I do. There are times, like big World Cups and European Championships, where I think, those lads are out there watching the biggest games, Champions League games, and commenting on it. It's a good gig, isn't it?
It's a great piss up. Let's be honest. They're travelling around the world. I did this thing during when was it? Well, it was a couple of years ago, and we were all in France, and I saw Danny Murphy and people like that, and they were all having a great night out. Mm-hmm. Next day, watch football. It's living the dream.
I'm really looking forward to going and watching big games. All across the world, because I'm a fan at the end of the day, but I've never had the fan experience. I had it when I was a kid, growing up, and that's what made me fall in love with the game, watching close quarters and stuff. So having been a part of it, for 20 years, it'd be nice to sort of come back from that and go to a game as a fan, maybe take my little boy. And
apparently you can get Bovril.
You can.
At football grounds.
Apparently you've always been able to get Bovril.
For many years.
Because I used to get a Bovril. That was when I was a kid, I always used to get a Bovril. That's why I was so gutted when you told me it had finished. But as from various emails we've had, we know full well that it hasn't.
Do you ever, if you're watching a pundit, I don't know if you do this, Chris, when people argue with the TV, and you start going, shut up, you know what you're talking about?
More often than not, it's the same down the pub as it is in a Premier League dressing room. Many a time we've sat there and abused the pundit.
But mate, defenders talking about attackers, that kind of thing. See Martin Keown maybe discussing what you could have done better as a striker.
Yeah, your near post run.
What's your take on that?
Exactly right. I mean, they've got to give their honest opinion on it. But yeah, God, you just
don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, of course. That's what you want to say.
Well, imagine being a goalkeeper. Goalkeepers get it all the time because you very rarely have a specialist goalkeeper pundit.
You don't get goalkeeper
but everyone's
pundits,
like, you've got to do better then. You're like, how the hell do you know?
Exactly right. I mean, it's such a specialist subject, goalkeeping as well. I know from personal experience that goalkeepers bite on that regularly.
They defend themselves.
Well, you know about the Goalkeepers Union, obviously. So the Goalkeepers Union is where no other goalkeeper would dig out another goalkeeper. So we're watching a game on the bus, the keeper spilled it, and we'll all turn round to our goalkeepers and hammer them, and they will defend them. It regularly happens because a goalkeeper will never criticise another goalkeeper. They'll blame.
Is that true?
Yeah. So if you're a goalkeeper, you're in the union, and you will never hear a bad word said about another goalkeeper. They stick together.
What's the worst situation where if you, as a striker, if you miss a chance, a glorious chance, so you know they're going to show it, and the opposition immediately break and score? Is that doomsday because you know that the pundits are going to start off their analysis with, well, I mean, the turning point really in this game was when Crouch missed that sitter. It could have been so different, and they've gone down the other end and they've scored.
Without a shadow of any doubt. I mean, you know, as soon as... Sometimes those misses don't get shown. So, like, if you end up winning the game, the miss is an irrelevance. So, but if you lose the game, it's the root of the problem. So it gets analysed. It's like, well, what if they'd have taken their chances? But it's you. And then obviously you lose the game. That's when it gets shown. So it used to be... I remember, obviously, as a player, like at the highest level, like Liverpool, England, or Spurs, you know, big clubs and stuff. The analysis can be quite harsh. I think certainly playing for England, I played for England in a time where it was sort of us and them. I think it's changed now a lot. I think we do celebrate England players more, and they're achieving, they're doing well, and we've got good young players. I think there was a little link, obviously, with me when I sort of scored goals and stuff like that. It brought a bit of a smile to people's faces again. And I think when Sven loved the robot because it just took the heat off him. And genuinely, there'd be some sort of sting on a Sunday with him, and you know, people.
Fake Shake has done Sven again.
People were talking about the robot, and he was like, "Keep doing it, keep doing it."
In goes Crouch, and it's there, and Peter Crouch scores for England.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
Going back to some of the pundit chat, there's so much more technology in the analysis now, but don't you think that just causes more problems than it's worth as well? It does go wrong sometimes.
It does go wrong. Yeah, it's amazing, really, the technology. I was looking at the other day, was virtual reality offside decision going on. There's so much technology. Believe it or not, I went to India to do the World Cup as a pundit.
Obvious place to go.
For a week. I thought I'd cut my cloth out there where not many people really...
Only 2 billion people might watch
you. But 2 billion people watched it. I got over there and it was like, they said to me, all right, so you're live in front of like 2 billion now. And I was like, all right, so my plan to sort of like stay out of the way didn't really work.
Second most populous nation on the planet.
But it was a mad experience, but I thought it was a really good one. So I was doing the World Cups, and it was we were in Mumbai, and the way it worked was the Brazil World Cup, and a lot of the so the games were on at like 3-4 in the morning in India. My first appearance, and I was with Mikel Silvestre and a Bollywood star for some reason, and it was as we were doing it, they said, right, so we had a little rehearsal, and then they said, so the game's about to start. We're going to be live in like 10 minutes. That's the touch screen there. So when you use the touch screen, do this and that, we'll do that probably half time. I was like, what? Excuse me? They just dropped in a touch screen.
As if you're meant to have a qualification.
Yeah, just like, well, you're from England, you work the touch screen.
Your touch screen debut was in front of 2 billion people.
I always wondered what the training was on those touch screen things, because everyone seems so competent in it. And there's a lot of buttons in that. I think I heard that Gary Neville had one in his house for a few months.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're good at it. I was surprised at how Neville and Carragher sort of... how they were so good at it. But obviously, yeah, you need practice, because when I got dropped into that situation in India, I was thinking, well, basically, how have I got myself in this position here where I'm live to 2 billion on a touch screen that I've never used before with a Bollywood star, Mikel Silvestre.
You don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing as well.
Well, of course not.
You know, they've bought you over.
Of course not. So
professional.
There was a lot of buttons that I didn't use. And
kept it simple, didn't you?
I went with arrows and I went with moving players. It wasn't too difficult.
You didn't do the highlight player one?
No, I wasn't doing, where they stop it and they draw and then they go slowly and bring it back. I didn't do too much of that. When you light up a player,
no way.
Fancy that.
No way.
Didn't go near the lighting up a player. So I just went with arrows, a couple of bendy arrows and a couple of straight arrows, and then dropped them back in and stuff like that.
Did you just do analysis that helped you with the screen rather than actually proper analysis?
I scaled back my analysis.
This player's really good. You light up the wrong one or something.
But he's better.
And this is who I really wanted to talk about.
Look at the run that this player does 3 yards to the left.
Yeah. Well, there was one short run.
Circle around them.
There was one, I wanted to highlight like an arced run that the forward had made, but he ended up making a straight run. I just left it with that. That was a fantastic straight run.
Where's this all going to go then, Crouchy? Because in other sports, they're going beyond even what football is doing. So if you watch T20 in Australia, the Big Bash, the commentators can talk to the players. They'll have a player at square leg mic'd up. And they'll talk to them as the game is going on. The player will have to break off to dive full length to his left.
Yeah. The way the game's going now, people are talking about Amazon and Facebook coming in to bid for sort of games as well. I mean, that will obviously add more to it, but they're obviously American companies. We're going to want American-style analysis.
I think as a fan, I would like to hear a referee mic'd. Is there less bad language, honestly, in the game in the last season or two since that rule? The last couple of seasons, the back chat rule?
I don't think there's as much back chat to the referee. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of swearing still, to be honest.
But do you think if the referee wore a mic, then...
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to
stop
stop it, wouldn't you, I suppose? You would have to...
Would you like the referee to be mic'd?
What do we gain out? Do we gain enough out of it, really? I've always been against every different rule change or law that's come into the game because
You don't even like crossbars.
I love our game. Do you know what I mean? I love our game and I hate meddling with it. So I was fuming with the back pass rule. I was like, how can you ruining our game? Miles better. I mean, it was ridiculous if you look back. So I have to embrace it. Much the same as Alexa. I think I have to sort of... I'll have to embrace that at some stage, I'm sure, but I just don't like change.
Where do you stand on the new kickoff? Because before, you would have had a strike partner where you could have a nice little chinwag. Now, if you're taking the kickoff, you're just on your own.
Yeah, for me, a kickoff after you've conceded a goal is a bitch with the other forward. What are they doing back there? We're doing everything we can possibly do here. It's absolutely calamitous back there. And we used to bitch and then go and then kick off. Whereas now it's just a lonely experience. It's like you're just up there with your thoughts.
Talking to yourself.
Kicking it back.
Hoping the defenders aren't slagging you off.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
Crouchy, what about when footballers appear on TV in a different way? When they do cameos in TV shows. Have you seen that one with Emmanuel Petit in the bill?
Yes, I have seen this. I had no clue that he was... why is Emmanuel Petit in the bill? Can you explain
don't ask me. Chris?
From what I can see, they probably wanted any player.
Some glamour.
They've agreed, the club has probably agreed to release Petit for the... for the filming day. And as part of the scene, he arrives with flowers and a football to a hospital to a
So Emmanuel Petit is playing Emmanuel Petit.
He's playing himself.
Quite badly.
Yeah, so yeah.
Doesn't play himself very well.
It is scripted. He's been told what to say. It's very much...
Quite a big part.
Yeah. It's quite a few lines. But the problem is when the poor father is saying what's happened to the child.
She's in a coma.
Yes. And Emmanuel is sort of smiling throughout it. He's not quite got the...
You would smile if you're on the bill,
No, but this is the problem when you're not... And then he's delivering the lines quite deadpan. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because Emmanuel's got a tricky gig there. He's having to play an exaggerated version of himself on TV.
I don't know
Coogan and Bryden in The Trip.
Yeah, it's not really what Emmanuel Petit would do. I don't know. Maybe he would be like that.
No, I just think I don't know what his end goal is here. Like, why is he on the bill? Is he going for EastEnders?
You are right, because the bill is normally a gateway for a bigger gig.
Everyone's been on the bill.
Is he going is he looking to be an actor?
But I think some footballers, they want to express the other sides to their talents in new ways, right? So let's say you always fancied yourself as a bit of an actor, and then you have the means to be able to pursue it, don't you? Because you know a few TV producers, that kind of thing.
Well, I've had various roles. I've done a few adverts.
What have you done?
Pringles was one of my finest.
Pringles, yeah, of course.
One of my finest moments.
Pass the Pringles, Roberto.
Yeah, I was in a Pringles advert. I did a Virgin Media advert, which was quite enjoyed that one.
What was the hook there?
Don't sign for the wrong team.
Oh.
That was good.
Did you come in a helicopter or something?
Yeah, that's right. I actually did arrive on a helicopter. I came from Stokes training ground to the field, and we had one take because there's only so much helicopter action we could do. So when I arrived, I came and...
you nailed it on your first take.
One take, yeah. I mean, only top actors can do that.
Yeah, when you're doing this podcast, you have to have 5 dips at everything.
I'm useless at reading stuff, but acting, it just comes naturally.
Talk me through this. What's the idea? You arrive by helicopter. Children see this helicopter arrive. Oh my God, it's Peter Crouch. So
the manager has comes over to me at the helicopter and he welcomes me to the new club that I'm about to sign for or have signed for. And then I realised that it's a pub team and I've signed for the wrong team.
Guys, do you know what would be the dream? No, because I've had an amazing idea, right? Let's say we could get the podcast into an EastEnders.
Yes.
Into a Coronation Street. Do you know what I mean? Maybe you get one line on that. Think about it. If we're talking about where the future could be, you know, maybe someone walks past. What are you up to, Crouchy? I'm just recording our number one hit podcast, that Peter Crouch podcast.
Bum, 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 bum.
Do you know, like, I know I can't be picky because I'm not an actor, but if I could be in one, it'd be difficult to pick that. I grew up on soaps. I mean, I used to like them a lot. I don't watch them as much anymore, but Mum's a big Corrie fan. I used to watch EastEnders, loved Neighbours, Home and Away. Maybe we could do Home and Away because that's an exotic location. We could get ourselves into the summer house. Summer Bay, is it? What's Summer Bay? What's the shack called?
I was a Neighbours man, so.
Oh, were you? Lassiter's. You'd be having a coffee.
Is Lassiter's still on? Because since it's moved from the BBC, I don't think people watch it anymore. But
I once met Stephen Dennis talking about Neighbours.
Yeah.
It's in a slightly strange situation where you wouldn't.
He's still on it, is he?
Well, it does the classic soap thing of going away and he wants to play Hamlet at the Almeida, and then they realise,
and then it's back to Israel.
Yeah, you know what I mean, it's the most chastening thing of all.
Back to Ramsey Street.
Exactly.
I just think it could be good, couldn't it, for all of us to get a bit of acting experience like that. You could potentially get a line on one of the soaps. It'd be amazing to make it happen.
Yeah. Could we record? Could we just be in the background in the Queen Vic?
Honestly, I think that would be the funniest thing. Is
just at a pint.
Yeah, so only if you're watching it, you see us in the background recording a podcast.
Like in Harry Potter when Ian Brown from the Stone Roses is in the leaky cauldron stirring a cup of tea with his finger. You seen
really? Ian Brown's in Harry Potter?
Yeah, and the camera just pans, it never flags up. It's yeah.
Have you ever seen? Is it Richard Branson in Bond? Have you ever seen that one?
No.
When he's going through the airport terminal. You not seen it?
No.
That's so mad. He's like, I'm sure, like they're going through the security and stuff like that, and Richard Branson's just getting frisked.
Is he?
And he's in a Bond film.
But that's crazy, and they've kind of underplayed it.
So yeah, you don't even. I had to pause it and rewind it and go. I'm sure that was Richard Branson, and he's just getting frisked at the airport.
The thing is, you've got to build your way up. So maybe what you need to do is start with a small bit of TV in like a different job. So maybe it could be. I mean, Dion's done that. I assume he's Homes Under the Hammer. It might be a gateway to
a place in the sun.
From a place in the sun to Home and Away, and before you know it, you're in Hollywood.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah,
there's got to be a progression of some kind there, hasn't there? Going back to footballers acting, though, is that the problem? Is that you only know them as footballers? A bit like soap characters can't break out their role. You're watching footballers act, but you know that they're you can't get past it. So that's why their acting looks particularly bad. I'm thinking of here Michael Owen.
Oh, please, yeah.
And this opens up a whole new chat, which is about chonky advert tie-ins. Michael Owen is surely the king of them. I saw an amazing promotional video for Dubai in a helicopter. At one point, the helicopter gets hit by a golf ball.
Sam Torrance.
Oh, look. It's the worst. I mean, it is the worst thing ever. And United, because a massive team, had loads of these tie-ins with... I remember there was quite a couple of movie tie-ins as well. Wayne Rooney had a little go at acting. It was awful.
I think some of these things, like... You think that people aren't going to see them? The world of YouTube and stuff has brought it home. I think there's... Like actors and stuff used to do Japanese, Chinese
whiskey ones,
adverts, didn't they? And get paid a fortune and think, oh, no one will see that. They're not great, are they?
Do you turn down some of the idea? Because you must get pitched them quite a lot, right?
Yeah, a few bits and pieces. Like I try, obviously, I've been involved in some good ones and some bad ones. With England, obviously, there was a few partners and things like that where you had to sort of do things. I think Mars were a big sponsor and National Express buses, believe it or not, were one. So I got roped into a few bits.
What do they want you to do for the buses?
The bus one was I had to just go and sign a bus.
Sign a bus?
I signed a bus and had a few photos with them, and
Your dad, Bruce, is in advertising, so would he give you a bit of a steer? Would you let him look over the script?
Yeah, like, I used to go, I went on a few shoots when I was a kid, so I sort of knew how it worked. And it's funny seeing it from the other side now. I used to see it from my dad's side and be like, oh, I've got to work with this pain in the arse. Well, I'm the pain in the arse now. So like, you know, like the people that they come in for and you've got them for a couple of hours.
Do you ever see an advert on TV? I'm thinking, you know, the Liverpool hair.
Nivea one.
Yeah, the shampoo. And then play against some of these people on the pitch and reference the adverts or give them stick.
Yeah, you've got to have some stick, I think. It's all part and parcel of doing an advert, isn't it? I'm sure that some of those Liverpool players get some stick.
Do they get freebies as well?
So it must do. They must.
When Joe Hart did his Head and Shoulders, was he dishing out Head and Shoulders freebies?
Yeah. I mean, I've got a few sponsors and stuff and a few bits and pieces that I work with, and they always look after you, but then you've got to look after the teammates so they don't give you any grief. So yeah, like you say, if it's a product or a hair product, or you've got to bring that stuff in.
Did you ever watch Footballers' Wives?
Yes.
Were you into it or not?
Yeah,
were you a footballer by then?
Possibly, yeah. It was early days, but
was it like real life or?
Yeah, a bit. It was a bit, yeah. It's no Dream Team, but...
Well, I was going to say Dream Team. Is that more realistic?
Well, Dream Team was amazing, because you remember the forward Fletcher, the Flash fellow, used to wear the white boots and the Ferrari. And so, what was his first name? I call him Darren Fletcher, but I'm it's Carl Fletcher. He's a Carl.
Oh, what?
It's a Carl Fletcher. That was it. And he behaved like a Carl, didn't he? But he, I remember seeing him in a restaurant in Richmond. I couldn't believe it. We were having a pizza, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's Carl Fletcher from Dream Team, Harchester United's finest." And he got out, and I was just expecting him to just have 2-page free girls and get into a Ferrari, and he just had a family and got in a polo. I couldn't believe it. Killed me.
Crouch going for the spectacular. Oh, what a goal from Peter Crouch.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
I really enjoyed that episode. Got strangely deep in places.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
The morality of football. Look, let's crack on with a few. Let's crack on with a few more messages before we end this pod. We got a message from Declan here. It says, "Hi, Crouchy, Chris, and Tom. I just thought you should know how I passed the pod. I'm a personal trainer, so picture this. The session is over, it's time for a stretch. My client is lying on the floor and I'm kneeling with one of their legs on my shoulder and my other leg pinning them down."
That's the classic personal trainer pose, isn't it? We've all seen that.
That's why you can't trust them.
Without a shadow. No chance.
Never trust a personal trainer. I persuade their leg closer to their face by leaning my body into them, so now my face is 6 inches away. So yeah, they're leaning over them, like leaning into them.
The hamstring
like
is pinging and twitching.
Yeah.
This is an awkward moment, so do I A, make eye contact and smile, B, look away, or C, pass the pod? Well, last week I was in someone's face talking about how Crouchy almost bought a slide for 50 grand. Yeah, I forgot about that. Love the pod, boys. Please help keep this awkward moment interesting for me. That's from Dec, PT Extraordinaire. Now, Dec, we do not trust personal trainers on this podcast. I definitely don't. All personal trainers, we know what you're up to. Don't you agree, Crouchy?
Do agree, I'm afraid. That position, like why do you need to do that stretch? Why can't you do it yourself?
Yeah. But
it's a sex position, basically.
It's not nice, is it?
It's a great excuse for you to pass the pod. And as we say, any way that you can pass this pod,
it's
what it's all about. We appreciate it.
It's fantastic. I love the thought of that.
Crouchy, there's a nice email for you here. You get stuck into this one.
Okay. Well, Peter's got in touch. Someone I suspect a football player has lost a Porsche, apparently. I visited a friend who lives in Portsmouth and they pointed out a Porsche Boxster which hadn't moved in years. It's a 2008 model with road tax disc which expired in 2009, meaning it's been sat there for 10 years. Whoa. As you were at Portsmouth around that time, I wondered if you'd left a car behind. If it's not you, could there be another player who hasn't noticed he's missing a car? By the way, the keys are still in the ignition.
What?
Hope you can help. That's from Peter on the South Coast.
There is a story about Pennant leaving Did he leave a Porsche in Zaragoza?
Yeah, when he was in Zaragoza, he left a Porsche
at the train station.
And just...
just forgot he had a Porsche, Chris.
And just got off, yeah. A Porsche Boxster, I wouldn't fit in it. So I can rule myself out of that.
Right, I've got up here on Wikipedia the squad, the Portsmouth squad. David James, Jamie Ashdown, Asmir Begovic.
None of those.
Too big for a boxer.
Too big for a boxer.
Eunice Cabal, Glenn Johnson, Herman Haridason, Sylvain Distin, Mark Wilson. Any of those boys?
Mark Wilson potential.
Midfielders, Hayden Mullins, Papa Bouba Diop, Pennant. It's Pennant again.
Pennant's involved.
Pennant might have left 2 different Porsches in 2 different
The worst thing is, even if Pennant's not involved, he's involved.
Was Nugent part of that Portsmouth team at that point?
Yeah.
Was he?
A good side, actually. Very good side.
Did he get the biggest goal-hanging goal ever for England?
Yeah. Jermaine Defoe was fuming over that. Because Jermaine Defoe had a shot. And genuinely, when Defoe signed for Portsmouth, I think Nuge was already there, Defoe had some serious beef with him for stealing that goal. If you think about Nuge, he's got one England game and 1 goal. But he did. I mean, it was going in, and he
about 2 yards out, wasn't
nicked
he?
It wasn't even
Scandalous.
He nicked it on the line, and Defoe, being the player he is, was fuming, and he had real beef with him over it.
Another one of Crouch's former classmates from Ealing has got in touch.
Ledge.
Are we ready for
Up
this?
here, aren't they?
This is very good. Hi, Peter, Chris and Tom. I'd like to share my wife's memory of Peter from primary school in Ealing. She's called Celia and was in your class.
Ring a bell,
Remember
Crouchy?
Celia?
Celia Boydell.
Isn't it great when you remember people you used to go to school with, you remember them as a full name?
It's always
Their
full
entire name, yeah.
Always full name. The thing was, like, this is first school, I think. I do believe.
Really?
No.
She said whenever you weren't playing football at playtime, you would just march around the playground with your arms aloft singing, QPR, my lord, QPR.
When I wasn't playing football, I was doing that. But there was only one time I remember where I wasn't playing football, because we used to have a ball playground and a main playground.
You're lovely.
So the ball playground was where it happened. You know, obviously a lot of testosterone, a lot of games, intense games going on. But sometimes I would break, but very rarely. But the only time I remember when I did go to the main playground was when I got banned from the ball playground for a week.
For what crime?
For throwing conkers into the park at people. I turned around, Mr. Fisher was there, and I knew I was in big trouble. And he knew the biggest killer for me was banning me from the ball playground. So he banned me, and I made my dad come in.
Did you?
Yeah, because I was like, I can't go 3
You
days.
appealed it?
I appealed the decision, and I got it overturned.
Your dad was your barrister.
Yeah, well, Dave's a big fella, so he came in all guns blazing, and thankfully I only missed a day.
The ball playground was chaos because there'd be games going vertical and games going horizontal.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right. It was amazing because I remember the older kids would play the long game across the pitch, and we'd play the short game. And it's one of those, if you got in the way of the older lads, like you'd have to just turn out and go back to the keeper. Because if you got in their game, you know you were getting a whack.
Steamroller.
Yeah. And then when we were the older ones, we used to do that.
Here's a message from Edward. Edward says, my girlfriend is American. She doesn't know the slightest thing about football, but she's a huge fan of the pod and Crouchy. Please give Taylor a shout out on the next episode. You don't know how much it would mean to her. Cheers, Edward. And then Conrad, who's our Vancouver ambassador, recently wore his T-shirt to a Vancouver Whitecaps match against Seattle Sounders, 0-0 draw.
I saw that picture of him there. I'm pleased. I'm happy that it's over in Vancouver. I like that.
You get quite a few pictures, don't you, boys, now of people wearing their T-shirt at Premier League grounds.
At games, yeah.
Which is
really
nice.
Good, really good.
Yeah,
Well,
it's great. And also, I think we'd love to hear stories about where you've been wearing the T-shirts and people have spoken to you about it.
Did you see the lad who ran a half marathon in his Peter Crouch T-shirt?
Did, yeah.
Was it the Limassol half marathon?
Yeah.
Amazing.
And was violently ill but felt like he had to continue to pass the pod.
Fair play to him.
I just want to finish with this one. This is a lovely message from Daniel, who tweeted us to say, I've passed the pod on to my girlfriend and we listened to it today en route for her job interview and it really helped calm her nerves. Thanks, lads.
Superb.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's about.
So look, we'll be back with another podcast soon. Back stronger as
Back
always.
stronger.
What is the next episode about?
Next episode is going to be about referees. Interesting
Beautiful.
topic. We spent hours discussing this for no reason, me and Tom the other day.
We did,
Really?
yeah.
Yeah, so...
We're going to talk about card showing technique, Chris. Would you be a brandisher? Would you be a sort of reluctant, slow reveal?
Also, I guess the psychology behind people who choose to be a referee rather than a footballer, because you assume they love football, but must
They cannot
love
play
being
it.
a referee, right?
Find it very, very strange. I don't know anyone whose ambition was
sought.
to become a referee.
Looking forward to it, boys.
Back stronger.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
Alexa, play that Peter Crouch podcast.
Here's the Peter Crouch podcast from the 9th of April 2019.
Back stronger.
What the hell was that?
That's not bad, that.
Carlton, Calder, Carlton, Calder, Carlton, Calder, Carlton, Cole.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.